Hey, welcome to another Based Marriage Podcast episode. Episode number 20, I do believe. First thing, please like and subscribe this. The more that you do that, the more that you share this with other people, the more that I am, motivated to keep going. It's kind of a big deal. If people are listening to the show, hey, look, there's people that are listening to the show. I'm more likely to do some more of them. It gets me motivated. I'm a human being. I like seeing the fruits of my labor. I also like doing this show, so I'll probably do them even if nobody's listening. I figure eventually somebody will be listening, right? Anyways, I want to give a shout out, a big salute to one of my heroes, Felix Baumgartner. He really recently went to his eternal reward. He was a hero of mine from when I saw him, 2012, October 2012. He jumped out of the weather balloon at about 127,000 feet and fell faster than the speed of sound, like a lead weight toward the earth. I think he fell a total, free-felled, a total of 119,000 feet before he pulled the ripcord on the parachute. That was pretty cool. And Red Bull and YouTube streamed it live on YouTube that afternoon, and I watched it as he ascended. I watched it as he fell, as he landed on the ground. That was a pretty landmark event of watching. I suspect it was a lot like when boomers got to watch the moon landing. Anyhow, he passed away. He died in a crash. I think he was paragliding or something. So God be with him and with his family. The guy has more guts and more courage, and I've often thought about, can I have that much guts and that much courage? My state in life is not to do all the really death-defying type stuff that he does, but in the work that I do in my life, even out in the world, do I have the courage to take action to the degree that Felix Baumgartner has the courage to take action? God bless him. So, Felix, you will be missed. Also, if you want to make sure that your sons don't turn gay, get them involved in anything Red Bull sports related. Just don't let them drink it. It's like skateboarding, motocross, snowboarding, basically anything with wheels, wings, or a board. That's good stuff. Let your kid get into that. Let him get hurt. Let him skin his knees. Let him break his arm. All of that stuff. It will make him tougher. Don't go break his arm on purpose. But, getting through that and then getting up and continuing on another day, after he's healed and all of that. But definitely don't discourage it. Take him where he's around other people who are doing those things. Let him experiment. I draw the line at motorcycles on the road. We've had 4 people in our Catholic community, which is a very small Catholic community here in East Texas, 4 people who have died in motorcycle accidents in the last 5 years. That's 4 Catholics that have died, and the area is only 3% Catholic. So I draw the line at motorcycles on the road. That is something I will and have been discouraging my son from ever doing. Motocross, dirt biking, go right ahead. What do they call that? The cage of death, that big metal sphere where they and do all that stuff. Do that too. It's the getting hit by a car thing that seems to be particularly awful. It's not all the hazards on the road. It's the other drivers. That's the biggest danger. All right, next bit. In the last episode, we talked about the Denver Seminarian Yeti blood ritual. Just as soon as I finished recording, this popped up in my inbox. Talk about more tradition and ritual. It'll come up here on the screen. All right, I'll read this to you. It's from Old Photo Club. It's a Facebook account. They came down the main avenue of Tbilisi in 1915 on horseback, draped in chainmail, swords at their sides. Not a movie crew, not reenactors, but real mountain warriors from Georgia's, I'm going to butcher that, Khevsureti region, stirring memories of a world long gone. Locals stared. Some swore they were ghosts from the 12th century. In truth, they were fierce Christian fighters from the Caucasus whose traditions ran so deep they still bore shields, chainmail, and crosses as their ancestors had for centuries. Tradition, ritual, initiation, brotherhood. These are the things that I talked about in the last episode. This is important. This is one of the things that men were created for. Men were created to do. This is an aspect of our charism, our grace, our creation. For generations, travelers claimed the Khevsurs were descended from crusaders left behind during the medieval wars for the Holy Land. Their attire certainly looked the part. Heavy mail, cross-emblazoned tunics, and swords forged in the old style. Though historians debate that origin story, one fact remains. The Kevsurs lived and fought as if history still breathed through them. When Russia went to war with the Ottoman Empire in 1914, a small group of Kevsur volunteers arrived in full traditional armor. Their weapons may not have matched the modern battlefield, but their presence was unforgettable, a living echo of the warrior spirit that shaped their mountains. Today, their legacy lives on in folk memory, in ceremonial dress, and in the Georgian flag itself, where the Crusaders' cross still flies. As one American traveler wrote after witnessing their arrival, a band of 12th century Crusaders came riding on horseback down the main avenue of Tiflis. People's eyes almost popped out of their heads. They weren't ghosts, they were Kevsurs, and they were very much alive. And so here you see the picture. In the shadow of World War I, a band of warriors rode into Tbilisi wearing chainmail as if the Crusades had never ended. So we talked about ritual in the last one. The Yeti blood sacrifice ritual is just one such ritual. There doesn't have to be a threshold for what you think is stupid or what you understand or what you don't understand. A ritual is a ritual. It's important to the people who are participating in it, and that's about all that it matters. It doesn't matter. If you're not in it, if it's not something you are, that's even in your particular sphere, you don't have to understand it. And they don't need permission in order to do it, in order to exist. They definitely don't need your permission in order to exist. Other rituals. TV shows have rituals, like an opening theme song, or that show that the science dorks or the tall, lanky one makes some deadpan joke in the same format every single time, and then they do the whole, the whole theme song about all started with a big bang or whatever. That's a ritual. And if you watch it, on DVD, you see that same ritual. It's a pattern, but it's a ritualistic show. That show is ritual. They do it on purpose. It's something that you expect, you get used to. We are made for rhythms and patterns. Many podcasts have rituals. Scott Adams, one of my favorites, his ritual at the beginning of his show, Coffee with Scott Adams. It's called the simultaneous sip. And then they all drink coffee together, and it's brilliant. Or remember after, what was that TV show? I think it was Family Ties. That whole, they have the picture of the Labrador Retriever with a Frisbee in his mouth, and they'd say, the guy would say, sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog. Roar! And the bark. Like, Family Ties ends, and then they have a little fanfare after the dog barks and all that. It's very predictable. Everybody knew back in the 80s, the sit, Ubu, sit, good dog. I mean, that was a joke when we were in third grade, I was, 9? That was... what was that, like 1989 or something? Another ritual, wearing a flag pin to signify patriotism, but also you get a sense of belonging to your country, to the other people wearing flag pins. Oh, I'm a patriot, you're a patriot. Hey, great, we're wearing American flags, we're patriots, we're part of the club. Or the ritual wearing of hats. Men have different hats. A lot of men have different hats that they wear for different occasions. Or some men, like there's a guy named Carl Miller on YouTube, he wears his Pau Mia hat, or wore it all the time. He was known by this hat. It was something that was done by a lot of veterans who fought overseas. They wore the Pau Mia hat everywhere they went, or they wear the signature suspenders. A lot of them would do that. So there's a ritual of wearing clothing. Some of these are important only to the one person that does it, and some of them are important, like motorcycle riders. They'll reach their hand out low and give that signal as they're passing each other because there's a certain brotherhood in riding motorcycles. It's kind of that acknowledgement of, I'm in the club, you're in the club, I see you, I'm signaling to you that I see you. There's a brotherhood ritual about it. And I'm not talking about gangs, I'm talking about any motorcycle riders. Next time you're out driving, if you've never noticed this before, next time you're out driving and you see a motorcycle rider, notice that when he passes another one. Like, follow behind him, you'll see that left hand goes out, it gives kind of like a little peace sign or whatever, puts his hand out, just to signify to the other rider that he sees him. He knows he's there. Hey, brother, how's it going? Sort of a thing. Or the ritual of the national anthem at sporting events and putting your hand over your heart. That's a ritual. Sense of belonging, connectivity, community. We are created for ritual. And the Eucharist and the liturgy of the Catholic Church is not the only ritual that we are allowed to participate in. I saw that in some of the comments on the some of the posts about the Yeti bloodbath. Not my post, but the Pillar. A lot of the comments, oh, you should only be participating in liturgy. Liturgy is the only ritual that anybody should ever be participating in. No, we participate in rituals all the time. Many of our grandfathers and great-grandfathers, and even beyond that, belonged to men's organizations that had rituals, special handshakes. I'm not talking about Freemasonry. There are a whole bunch of other ones that had absolutely nothing to do with trying to overthrow the Catholic Church or take over the world or anything like that. They were just fraternal organizations, some of them based on the profession that they were engaged in, and some of them were just civic organizations. They were trying to do good stuff for the community, and they had some fun. You've got Knights of Columbus. There are rituals there as well. They have special handshakes. They have special attire. Some followed Robert's Rules of Orders and some didn't. Some sang songs. They had special songs that they would sing. Some are engaged in a civic activity, like things benefiting the community in some way. Even women participate in ritual. Some of them I don't understand, but that's okay. I'm not trying to abolish them or anything, and I'm not trying to infiltrate them and turn them into something else that I think they should be. Like putting on pink clothing and walking around in a giant circle to fight breast cancer. I don't know how walking around in a big circle with 1,000 other people helps defeat breast cancer, but it's a ritual and it's done anyway, and they can do that, and I don't have any problem with that, and they don't have to ask my permission in order to do that. But here's one I do understand, like baby showers and bridal showers. The tame bridal showers, of course, not the ones where they go out and do morally despicable things. That's something else entirely. But to celebrate that a young woman is going to get married and all the women in her little community come around and they throw a bridal shower and they celebrate it and they give gifts and give advice and maybe they play little games and, they have a good time. They eat, they bring food. It's good. Wedding receptions, that's a ritual. Baby showers, a ritual. Celebrating that woman that they celebrated her getting married not long ago. She's having a baby shower. She's having a baby, so let's throw a shower. Let's help her out with some of the things that she's going to need materially, like diapers and bottles and blankets and things like that, but also just show her that we love her, we support her, we care about her, and we're celebrating this joy with her. Those are good rituals. They are rituals. Some rituals are easily understood and some are not. Many people don't understand the snipe hunting example that I gave in the last podcast. Should we get rid of all the things that we don't understand or that we don't agree with? Has your knowledge and understanding always been the same since you were born? I hope not. You don't know or understand anything when you're a kid. Your knowledge and understanding evolved at some point. Have you now peaked at 35 or 55 years old? If you think that you have peaked, you are not changing in any way your knowledge and understanding about the world, about life, about how things work, about people. If you think you got it figured out right now, you are severely lacking in humility. You think that, okay, I understand and I have all the right positions and opinions and all of that. And what I know now to be true is definitely the truth and will always be true. Like, how did you live through the COVID lockdowns where if you're intelligent, absolutely everything that you ever knew about anything has been completely destroyed or been revealed to be a lie? How did you live through that time and now you think you've got it all figured out? Like, you're deluded. What are you watching? What are you listening to? If you think you have it all figured out now, the only thing that anyone ever comes close to these days of figuring out is that pretty much everything was a lie. We can't figure out which direction the lies are. Well, are eggs good for you or eggs not good for you? Well, they told us for 50 years that eggs were not good for you, and then we figured out everything was a lie. So I think eggs are good for us now, and they always have been. So we're just going to lean on that for a while. But we're open to the idea that maybe eggs aren't that good for you, but we'll figure that out later. But it definitely won't be some kind of governmental or scientific institution that actually tells us that. It'll be more like, my dad ate eggs every day for 50 years and dropped dead of a heart attack. And my uncle did the same thing. And my brother did the same thing, and their dying words every time was, it was the eggs. Okay, then maybe I'll believe that the eggs were bad for me, So at least in some ways, your knowledge and understanding ought to be changing. So marrying something so finite, so strongly right now of, oh, well, that ritual is definitely bad, 100%, period, and I know I've got the right opinion about it. You've changed so much to get to this point. you're going to change a whole lot. Well, I'm not going to change in that. Okay, that's a stubbornness and a pride just for the sake of being right. So hopefully, at least in some ways, it should be changing, evolving, becoming better developed. So don't grab on too hard for those things that are not ironclad truth. Anyways, boys and men had ritual spaces, and in a period of about 10 to 20 years, they were completely wiped out with few remnants. I mean, the Boy Scouts held on for a little while, but now they're Scouting America, and they just allow girls in. I remember when I was a kid, I was an altar boy at St. Mark's Catholic Church in Plano, Texas. I think there were 6,000 families at this parish. We had 13 masses. There were like 120 altar boys at this place. God bless Father Smith. You know, when he died, he was the pastor there for, 20 years. He was an Irish priest. He wore a short brim fedora, and he was Irish, but man, when he died, there was a little kind of memorial service, and then asked people to get up, and nobody would get up and say a kind word about him. I don't know why, or I didn't know why at the time, and I can only speculate now. But he was trying to keep everything traditional. And there were a lot of people at the parish that didn't want that. They wanted to continue moving forward in this progress. And John Paul II, back in the 80s, said, well, if you want to, I'm going to allow you to have altar girls now. And Father Smith said, over my dead body. And so he continued with only altar boys. And we had rituals. We would go out to the Dallas Sidekicks soccer games, and then they would have like a Christian concert on the field afterwards. We would go to those things. We would go to Wet and Wild every summer, which is pretty cool. We went to, I think, Major League Baseball games, like 120 kids. And we had, a handful of priests and some chaperones. And we had 120 boys go on these events. And they were a lot of fun. And I had some friends in the altar boys, but we had kind of a military regiment about it. It was, take this seriously. You have a serious job here as an altar server, and you're given a special mission. And there was a whole point system and everything. So if you served X amount of masses with, there were 5 different positions. So if you were in, position number 1, you got the most points for that particular mass. If you served in position number 2, position number 3, and all of that, figuring out what position you were going to serve was based on who showed up first. So there were boys that would stay there all Sunday long just so that they could put their name on the list to see if they could serve at the next mass. So the top 12 servers with the highest points got to have their feet washed at the Holy Thursday liturgy, at the foot washing. Okay, so the top 12. I made it in the top 12, and I ended up with a stomach bug that year, and I didn't get to have my feet washed. I was so disappointed. Anyways, it was me and Chris. I can't remember Chris's name, but I see exactly what he looked like. He was the number 1 guy. I was number 2, and there were 10 people behind me. But that was the thing. It was a friendly competition, but it was a good competition. It was a brotherhood. It was something that we were connected in, and we took very seriously. And then Father Smith died, and they let the girls in, boom, and it completely decimated. No, beyond decimated. Decimated is to destroy, kill 10% of the population. It was like 95% of the servers quit. Because 10-year-olds through 16-year-olds don't really want to hang out with girls in that kind of capacity. 10 to 14-year-olds don't want to be around girls anyways. They're not interested in girls at that age. And the girls would show up, and they're like doing their ponytails, and they're like, do you like my cute little clip, my cute little whatever? Oh yeah, oh look at your nails, oh this is great. Like, that's the last place a boy wants to be. It absolutely destroyed the program. The guy who was in charge of it quit. He's like, I'm not doing this. I lost all the servers. We had a great program. I lost all of the servers, and now it's babysitting for girls who don't know how to stand still, who have, they're in the black cassock with a white surplice, as supposed to be. And they're standing there, and they've got their pink painted fingernails, and they got their stupid like jelly shoes and their ponytail and everything else. They look ridiculous up there. The boys didn't want anything to do with that. The girls infiltrated. The feminists infiltrated. No, our girls should be allowed to do it too. And it destroyed the entire program. And in that whole time, from 1980 until today, there has been one vocation to the priesthood from that parish. One vocation of the priesthood. John Sikowski, I think. He was one of the altar servers, one of the 5% that stuck with it. I think that's his name. Anyways, he was the one. Because altar service is a serious thing. It's for boys. It's an apprenticeship to the priesthood. And when you introduce girls, it completely destroys the apprenticeship. It becomes a DEI program. And nobody wants to participate in a DEI program. So they destroyed it. There were 120 boys in that altar service. There were good priests there too. There were some bad priests there too. But there were some good priests there too who were really mentoring us and having a connection with us. And they were trying to bring us up in that. But once they introduced girls, that was it. Done. Gone. There could have been some good vocations coming out of that church from that program because there were a lot of good boys who really took it seriously. But they poisoned the whole thing. Because girls said, well, I want it, therefore I should have it. Bunch of Disney princesses and their moms. And their dads were being supportive just because they think being supportive is a virtue, and it's not. Now, they didn't come up with this on their own. That's what we're all propagandized into in television and movies, is being supportive, and in the stupid pop psychology books and all the rest, was being supportive, regardless of whether or not it's a good thing. Our virtue is to be supportive. We got to stop being supportive of stupid things like that. It destroys really great systems that are in place that make things work properly. All right. Anyways, boys and men had ritual spaces in a period of about 10 to 20 years. Again, and I think I mentioned this last time, Antonin Scalia, golly, man, I used to remember, I majored in political science. I remember this guy was like, yeah, he's the most conservative. He's fantastic. I think he died at a ranch owned by Jeffrey Epstein. I think that happened. Let's go look that up. Antonin Scalia, Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, no, he didn't die. Just to clarify the record, Antonin Scalia did not die at a ranch owned by Jeffrey Epstein. He was found dead at Cibolo Creek Ranch in 2016. Anyways, Antonin Scalia made some of the worst Supreme Court decisions ever. Rotary International versus Rotary Club of Duarte. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled that the California Unruh Civil Rights Act did not violate the First Amendment by requiring Rotary clubs to admit women. Okay, that opinion in itself, that was 1987, I believe. Yeah, 1987. Okay, that opinion is ridiculous. It's hilarious. Because the United States Constitution was written by all men to create a government that was all men. And so to say that the state of California did not violate the First Amendment, freedom of association, by requiring clubs to admit women, they're saying, no. A government can require an organization to admit women, even though the founders of the Constitution, the framers, the writers, the voters, on the ratifiers of the Constitution and the creators of the first government did not. They intentionally excluded women. It was not even thought of to allow women. So an organization created by solely men ruled, and who wrote the First Amendment of the Constitution, ruled that a state can then force organizations to admit women because that's what the Constitution originally meant. That's absolutely asinine. It's completely ridiculous. Anyways, so Scalia wasn't alone in that. So correct the record from last time. Anyways, Scalia, supposedly this lion-hearted conservative, had some seriously bad rulings. Another one was Scalia, I forget the name of the case, but basically there was a guy who was growing marijuana on his own property for his own use, not for sale. And they ruled that he was in violation of the Interstate Commerce Clause because he was choosing not to participate in Interstate Commerce Clause, which is in itself a participation in Interstate Commerce Clause because the money that he is saving by smoking his own marijuana is keeping him from buying someone else's marijuana, and thus his lack of engagement in commerce is actually an engagement in commerce. It's one of the most retarded things on the planet. It needs to be overturned. Somebody needs to challenge the hell out of that thing. Anyways, yeah, some really seriously awful cases in the 1980s in that period. Anyways, so boys and men had ritual spaces in about 10 to 20 years, like right after 1987, that Rotary case, like organization after organization just allowed women in because they're like, shoot, man, they're suing the tar out of us. We're going to get lambasted. We got to let women in. Eventually, Augusta Golf Course or Augusta Country Club was holding on for a very long time, and eventually they let women in. So even the private clubs, they really get attacked vehemently by women. Well, we should have it too. We should be allowed to. We should have. It's like this sense of entitlement, but they don't understand what they're destroying. They're destroying men's spaces, which means men are no longer iron sharpens iron. It's iron sharpens iron, but with gloves. Not even with gloves, but they have to change the way that iron sharpens iron so that it doesn't offend the women nearby, so it doesn't offend their sensitivities, their sensibilities, those things like that. And women get offended by a whole bunch of things that men do that are perfectly healthy things that men do, but women don't like it. But it's important for men to be able to have men's spaces, and those all but disappeared within that 10 to 20 year period. Even organizations like the Knights of Columbus and the Freemasons had to create a ladies' auxiliary as a result of this this ruling that it was considered discrimination and a violation of the First Amendment to discriminate against women. So they created women's auxiliaries to this thing, which kind of kept them separate. It was like tossing them a bone. But still, men's spaces were completely wiped out with only a few remnants. And usually the only mark or the only qualification that kept women out was any kind of performance ability, like physical performance, like professional sports. Women are just not going to participate at the same level as men in Major League Baseball or basketball or football or any of the professional sports, and that's pretty much what keeps women out. They can't do it. Even in places like the military or the Citadel, they did change the standards, the physical performance standards, so women could be included. The first woman to get into the Citadel, her daddy was the commandant of the Citadel.
Corps is never going to have a healthy culture because we've set this toxic culture as our standard and all over the Marine Corps. And as soon as someone tries to change it, they're gone. They have to go somewhere else. They have to, PCS, they have to move to a different unit, or they have to go to school, or, so there's no stability in there.
Look, there's a reason why 26 of the most physically fit women in the Marine Corps have failed out of this course. That reason is simple. When you put 120 pounds on the back of a woman, she crumbles like a crouton.
This whole thing, daughter wants it, so daddy's going to give it to her, and he's going to completely destroy a men's space in order to make his daughter happy. Destroyed that brotherhood, destroyed that culture. And a woman, she can't be one of the boys. All the boys around her know that she's not one of the boys, even though they'll tell her, oh, she's just one of the guys. Even though they'll say that in front of her, they all know she's not. And it's different when she's not there. But it completely destroyed the brotherhood. Now about the only place you can get brotherhood is to get a job in an industry that's so physically demanding, or is in a physical environment that's so undesirable that no woman would dare enter that profession. Like working in oil rigs, or working construction, or working as a HVAC up in people's attics all day long, especially during the summer in Texas. Women aren't doing that. They're not doing roofing jobs. They're not plumbers crawling underneath houses. Although I met one time, but she was like a painter that went along with the plumber and would try to get painting jobs. Anyways, a lot of times you'll find women who are painters. Maybe in construction, at least out here, the women are always the ones holding the stop sign. They've got the hard hat on and everything, and the yellow flag, but they're standing there with the stop sign. But that's about the only time that you can get a men's space, is to go work at an oil refinery on the hot refinery floor, where it takes physical strength to do the job. Physical stamina that most women just don't have, and they don't want to be in those spaces. They'll work in HR, they'll work in the office, but that's about the only time you can get a men's place, a men's space. Now on the flip side, where women infiltrated every single men-only space, women lose their collective minds when a man tries to do the same. Isn't that interesting? Women are okay destroying men's spaces, but they're not okay when men try to enter their spaces. It doesn't even have to be a space where man dominates them physically, like weightlifting or boxing or volleyball. It's even in sororities. Women fight like angry hornets to keep men out. What would be great to see is women actually sticking up for men and men's spaces. Like, hey, ladies, I've been thinking that we girls don't really like it when the boys come into our spaces. Maybe we should think about how our insistence has negatively affected boys and men. Like, maybe they don't like it either. Maybe we should stop doing that and stop encouraging our daughters to go infiltrate men's spaces, violate men's spaces, break up men's spaces. You'd think a reasonable person would consider that. Hey, I don't like being punched in the face, so I'm going to stop punching other people in the face. But that doesn't seem to be the case. I haven't heard Riley Gaines or any of the other activists talking about maybe women should get out of men's spaces. You know, that's one thing that I keep hoping maybe with all of these guys, these trans activists, I wouldn't even say they're necessarily activists, but these trans guys, these guys who were showing up pretending to be women and participating in women's sports and infiltrating women's spaces, I keep hoping that eventually this hits, critical mass. And the women go, okay, you know, let's call a truce. Maybe we shouldn't have destroyed all of the men's spaces. Because we destroyed men's spaces and men don't have a place where men can be formed and shaped and chiseled. Or maybe just simply, I don't like that y'all let's call it truce. I don't like that y'all got into our spaces. We'll stay out of your space, you stay out of our space. But I don't see that happening. I mean, you even had a man as Woman of the Year in women's magazine. What is that? ESPN magazine. They had Woman of the Year. I don't remember the magazine, but, you know, the Jenner guy from Married with Children. He was Woman of the Year, and that still hasn't happened. You've got men dominating in every woman space, and the women aren't calling for a truce. They're just saying, get out. But they're not saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we screwed up. Maybe we ought to not do that. It needs to happen. We need to have a truce. Like, women, get out of our spaces, and we'll get on those trannies and tell them, hey, leave those women alone. Get out of there. Y'all don't seem to want to have that truce. There aren't enough shield maidens out there going, hey, you know what? We really should kind of call on our sisters and say, hey, leave these guys alone, man. Let guys be guys. Let men be men. Let boys be boys. We got to quit infiltrating this area. There aren't enough shield maidens. Riley Gaines would make a fantastic shield maiden going, hey, okay, now that we got the guys out of our space, we need to get out of theirs. We keep complaining, where are all the men? But they're not getting formed because they don't have their own spaces. Riley Gaines, that would make you a fantastic shield maiden. You'd be great at that. You know? Anyways, I keep hoping that when we see all these men dominating women's sports, that finally maybe they'll call for a truce and say, okay, we'll get out of your space. I don't think that's going to happen, though. There are political entities that are interested in continuing to destroy men's spaces, and they propagandize women in order to do that. And there are so many women who are mentally ill who are walking around that they have a real Jezebel spirit. They have a real sense of rebellion. They thrive on hurting men. But anyways, I think that needs to be the narrative. Let's have a truce. Women out of men's spaces, men out of women's spaces. I know it's something that you want, women, is to have all the things that men have, but we are different. We are created different, as is very obvious because the narrative among females lately is get mediocre male athletes out of women's sports. Look, the best female athletes can't beat mediocre men. There is a difference between us. You have recognized that there is at least one difference between us. It's not only in physicality, though. It's also in our souls, how we were created, our charisms, our gifts, our interests, our abilities, mentally, emotionally. How we are received by each other is different. A baby held by his father or her father, a male baby held by his father, is receiving that connection differently than if he is being held by his mother. A little girl, a baby girl held by her father, is receiving that connection differently than she does when held by her mother. Just by virtue of being held, they're received differently. We are received differently. It's in our souls. It's knit into the very fiber of our being. Okay, well, that was a lot of fun for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't yet already, please hit like and subscribe. If you're listening on audio, I do have this on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there is also the audio version of this. I have them both. You can find them both at bmpnation.substack.com, where you can sign up. You can get involved in the chat. There are only 2 of us there, so you can get involved in the chat, although I'm not on there very often to chat, so that's kind of fruitless. Anyways, I hope you like the show. Please stay tuned. I'm going to have much more of this coming up. I think my wife is actually going to be a guest pretty soon. That'll be fun. So, yeah, keep your ear to the wind, because I'm coming back soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.